You were never bad at reading people. You were just ignoring the patterns. That's why some people walk into your life and everything feels normal at first, but weeks later, you're overthinking, mentally exhausted, drained for no clear reason, and you still can't explain why. It's not random. It's not just stress. It's signals you missed. See, most people don't lie to you directly. They leak the truth in small, repeated behaviors, the way they react, the way they avoid, the way their words never quite match their actions. And once you notice this, something uncomfortable happens. You start realizing that the people you trusted the most were showing you who they were from the beginning. You just didn't see it. But here's the real shift. Once you learn how to spot these patterns in seconds, you don't just understand people, you predict them. And when that switch flips, you don't just protect your time and energy, you stop letting the wrong people slowly destroy your mental state without you even realizing it. It doesn't start as pain. It starts as a moment where you replay something you said earlier and think, wait, did that sound wrong? Then it happens again, not loudly, just quietly in your head. You recheck your words, you adjust your tone next time, you become slightly more careful in how you speak, how you react, how much of yourself you show. And you don't notice the shift happening because it feels like maturity, but it's not. That's the first layer. Then comes something deeper. You stop trusting your first instinct. You feel something is off in a conversation, but you ignore it. You think maybe you're overthinking again, so you stay, you explain, you try to understand, and slowly your own judgment starts feeling unreliable to you. And here's the part you don't realize while it's happening. You are not becoming better at dealing with people, you are becoming smaller around them. Not all at once, piece by piece. You speak, but with less certainty. You react, but with hesitation in the background. You show up, but not fully. And one day, without any dramatic moment, you realize something unsettling. You are still you, but not the version of you that feels natural anymore. And that's the line most people never recognize in time. When your personality starts changing just to keep peace, it's not adaptation, it's erosion. Because people who are safe for you don't require you to edit yourself. They don't make you question your tone, your reactions, or your intentions. If you are constantly monitoring yourself around someone, that is not comfort. That is pressure disguised as normal interaction. And the most dangerous part, you don't even call it harm while it's happening. You call it being understanding. You call it being patient. You call it being the bigger person. Until one day you realize there is nothing left to be the bigger person with, because you have already made yourself smaller. And now the question changes completely. Not what did they do to me, but how long have I been leaving myself in order to keep someone else comfortable? And once that question hits you properly, you don't just see people differently anymore. You start seeing yourself differently too. People don't hide who they are. They just don't repeat the same truth in front of you enough times for you to notice it. Because words are flexible. Anyone can adjust their words to fit the moment. But behavior has one limitation. It repeats itself under pressure. And that's where most people fail. They judge someone based on what was said in a good moment instead of what keeps happening across different moments. Because the real signal is never in the statement, it's in repetition. How someone treats you when they don't need anything from you. How quickly their energy changes when they lose control in a conversation. How they act when you stop giving them attention. That's not personality, that's pattern exposure. And here's the uncomfortable shift. What you call a good person with flaws is often just a pattern you haven't seen enough times yet. Because one kind moment doesn't define someone, and one apology doesn't reset behavior, and one emotional gesture doesn't cancel repetition. What defines someone is what they keep doing when no one is impressed, no one is watching, and nothing is being gained. And once you understand this, something changes immediately. You stop reacting to moments, you start reading sequences. And that's when it hits you. Most confusion in your life didn't come from people being complicated. It came from you focusing on isolated moments instead of repeated behavior. And here's the part that makes this personal. Because the same thing you missed in others is often what others are noticing in you too. And once that thought lands properly, you don't just start reading people differently. You start questioning what patterns you've been repeating without realizing it. Most people think understanding someone takes time, but in reality, they miss people because they're watching the wrong things. Not the big actions, the small, repeated ones. Because people don't reveal themselves in speeches, they reveal themselves in pressure gaps. When they're not getting what they want, when they feel slightly challenged, when they think they're not being observed. That's where the truth slips out. Not loudly, quietly, almost invisibly. And once you notice it once, you start noticing it everywhere. Truth number 1. How they treat people who can't benefit them. Because that version of them has no reason to perform, and that's the real one. Truth number 2. How they react when corrected. Some people adjust instantly, others feel attacked, and that reaction reveals more than their words ever will. Truth number 3. What happens when nothing is happening? Not the talking version of them, but the idle version. That's where control disappears and personality becomes visible. Truth number 4. What they become under emotional pressure. Not when they are stable, but when they lose stability. That's where consistency breaks. Truth number 5. What they constantly notice in others. Because attention is projection, and people always expose what they don't understand in themselves. Truth number 6. How they shift when they feel influence slipping. That sudden change isn't confusion, it's control reacting in real time. And here's what most people never realize. None of this feels important when it happens. It feels small, forgettable, even meaningless, until you connect it later and realize it was never random. It was consistent. And consistency doesn't hide anything. It reveals everything. And once you see that clearly, you stop reacting to people at surface level. Because suddenly you understand something most people learn too late. People don't change over time. They become more exposed over time. And once you can see that early, you're no longer reacting to people. You're reading what was always visible. Up to this point, you might think this is just about reading people better. But that's exactly where most people get it wrong. Because awareness doesn't protect you. It destabilizes you first, at least in the beginning. You start noticing things you were blind to before, small inconsistencies, emotional shifts, behavioral gaps. And instead of clarity, it creates discomfort, because now you can't unsee what you used to ignore. And here's where things get dangerous. Most people assume awareness equals control. It doesn't. It exposes tolerance, how long you stayed, what you excused, what you normalized, what your instincts warned you about but you ignored anyway. And that realization hits harder than the behavior itself, because suddenly the focus shifts. It's no longer, what are they doing? It becomes, why did I stay in it for so long? And that question doesn't feel intellectual. It feels personal and uncomfortable. And this is the turning point most people don't handle well. They either go into denial or they start overthinking everything and trust nothing. But both reactions come from the same place, loss of certainty. And that's exactly where this gets interesting. Because there is a third path, one most people never reach. And once you understand what comes next, you stop reacting emotionally to people and start seeing the mechanism behind their behavior instead. At this stage, you stop labeling people as good or bad, and start noticing something far more accurate: patterns of control, insecurity, and emotional defense. Because most behavior isn't random, it's protection. And once you see that clearly, everything becomes easier to read. Not simpler, just more honest. Truth number 7. Loud confidence is often unstable self-worth in disguise. The louder the need to prove "I'm fine," the less stable that fine actually is. Truth number 8. Over-explaining is not clarity. It's anxiety trying to be accepted. People who are secure don't fight to be understood. They state and they move. Truth number 9. Constant interruption isn't always dominance. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of silence. Fear of losing relevance in the conversation. Truth number 10. Projection is rarely accidental. When someone keeps accusing others of something specific, you are often looking at what they refuse to face in themselves. Truth number 11. Emotional inconsistency is not confusion, it's selection. Warm when it benefits them, cold when it doesn't. That shift is not mood, it's information. Truth number 12. The fastest signal of insecurity is reaction speed. Not silence, not avoidance, but how quickly someone becomes defensive. Because defense reveals fragility, not strength. And here's what connects all of this. None of these patterns are extreme in isolation. Everyone shows them sometimes. But repetition changes everything, because repeated behavior stops being reaction and becomes structure. And once you see people through that lens, something irreversible happens. You stop being impressed by words and start being informed by behavior. But there's one more layer left, and this final layer is where understanding stops being just awareness and starts becoming responsibility. Because once you recognize these patterns clearly, you also start noticing something you were never fully ready to see in yourself. At this point, something changes in how you see people. You stop reacting to surface behavior because you realize most of what people show you is not who they are. It's who they need to be in that moment, and that changes everything. Truth number 13. Kindness without boundaries is not respected. It is tested, always. Truth number 14. Emotion does not stabilize inconsistency. Love can exist and still not make someone reliable. Truth number 15. Respect is never given instantly. It is measured silently in small moments most people ignore. Truth number 16. Comfort reveals more than conflict ever does. When people feel safe, they stop performing and start revealing. Truth number 17. People don't suddenly change. Their behavior changes when their benefit changes. That pattern is consistent even when intentions are not. Truth number 18. The clearest truth about someone is not what they say. It is who you become around them. And when you connect all of this, something quiet starts to settle in your mind. Most people were never confusing. They were predictable, just not understood correctly. And that realization shifts everything. Because now the focus turns inward, not on them, on you. Your tolerance, your boundaries, your emotional patterns, the things you kept explaining away even when you already understood them. And that's where this stops being about reading people and becomes something harder to ignore. Not understanding others, but finally understanding what you've been willing to accept. Once you start reading people through patterns instead of words, something changes permanently. You stop reacting to what they say and start noticing what they consistently do. At first, it feels like clarity, but eventually, it becomes awareness you cannot turn off. Small inconsistencies, emotional shifts, repeated behavior you once ignored without thinking, and suddenly, you can't unsee it. But the real shift isn't outside, it's inside, because you also start noticing something else: yourself. The moments you ignored discomfort, the situations you stayed in longer than you should have, the patterns you understood but chose not to act on. And that leads to a question that doesn't feel intellectual anymore. It feels personal. What are you still calling normal just because you've adapted to it? And once that question enters your mind, it doesn't leave easily, because you don't just see people differently after this. You see your own tolerance differently too. And that is something you cannot fully unsee again.